Welcome to today's webinar. This is a webinar for chairs. It's a platform orientation for chairs. Today you are all joining this webinar on mute, but you can ask any questions you have via the Q&A option on the bottom menu bar. And my name is Lara, I work for the union, and I am going to introduce today to Audrey from the conference team, who will tell you a little bit more about this webinar we have today for you. Audrey.
Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this webinar. My name is Audrey Bakke from the conference program team of the union. And Joanna, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
My name is Joanna Szostakowska-Najdu, and I'm responsible for plenary and special sessions as well as TB Science.
And Ollie, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, no worries. My name's Ollie Potter, lead technical consultant for the union. Been around for the last 3 conferences. Hopefully some familiar faces out there today.
Anouk, over to you.
Yes, my name is Anouk Pijpstra. I'm from Conference Compass, the platform provider of the conference this year.
Thank you. So in today's webinar, we'll provide guidance for chairs on how to use the virtual platform, which is ran by Conference Compass. It will show you also how to use the chair moderator dedicated dashboard, how to join your virtual session room on the day of your session, and how to moderate the Q&A. It's important to highlight that on the day of your session, you will need to access your moderator dashboard. But when attending another session as a normal delegate, you should just connect via the conference platform itself. After the presentation, we will be happy to answer any questions you might have about the platform. Please write your questions in the Q&A section. Any other questions relating to the conference, but not to the chair's dashboard, can be sent to conferences@theunion.org, and we will come back to you at our earliest. A recording of the webinar will be available on our website in the coming days. Without further ado, you're invited to an immersion into the platform from the chair's perspective. Over to you, Anouk.
Welcome, my name is Anouk, and today I'm going to explain how to access and use your moderator dashboard for the 52nd Union World Conference on Lung Health. As a chair, you have or will soon receive an invitation to the session you are chairing. Via this email, you get access to your moderator dashboard of that session. So you click on Open Dashboard, it will open this website, and here you can create an account using the same email address as you've been invited with. Please note that if you are both speaker and chair in one session, your moderator invitation will only be sent once your pre-recording is approved. Once the moderator invitation is sent, you won't have access to the speaker dashboard of that session anymore. Nonetheless, you can use the same account as you created earlier as a speaker. So you click on Sign In, then you continue with email, you fill out your email address, and then you either fill out your password if you already created an account before as a speaker, or if you're new, you create the account from scratch. In the page of the event, you will find all the sessions you've been invited to. You can click on a session to access the session's moderator dashboard. On the moderator dashboard, you can participate in the live session and moderate the Q&A. We advise you to access the moderator dashboard in the Chrome browser, and when using the dashboard, we advise closing other applications and turn off your notifications. Please also make sure to use the same computer and internet connection before and during the conference, as a different computer setting or internet connection can always change your experience. Now we have accessed the moderator dashboard, I'm first going to explain what you see on the moderator dashboard. Afterwards, I will explain how to use the dashboard during the live session. Now, what do we see on the moderator dashboard? On the right side, under live speakers, you find everyone who is invited to the session. Per person, you can see their role, their name, and their company name. If a person is offline, so they have not opened their dashboard, you will see an offline indication. If a person has opened the dashboard and is thus online, the offline indication disappears, like you can see here for Marta. If the user enabled the camera, you can see a camera preview of that person. So you can see now Marta was already on her dashboard, but she enabled her camera, so we can see a preview here. If a user is online, no matter if their camera or microphone is enabled, they could hear you and you can talk to each other. Now, the live speakers can be selected to be the active presenter in two different modes, speaker and panel. You can find them here at the top. When the speaker mode is selected, we are broadcasting one person at a time. So I can broadcast Marta, and she will appear in the middle. Note that if we are broadcasting only one person, everyone else could be heard if they are not muted. So although Marta is now the presenting speaker, I am not muted, so if I would talk, the audience would hear me. Now, when panel mode will be selected, everyone who enabled their camera or microphone will appear together in the grid. If someone wishes not to participate in the grid, he or she simply needs to disable the microphone and camera, and they will disappear. Now, as you can see, when broadcasting persons, they appear in the two main frames with their slides. On the left, you can see the presenting slides, and on the right, you can see a preview of the camera of that person. For the slides, there is a zoom function available to enlarge the slides, as you can see here. So when someone is presenting, you can click this button to make the slides a little bit bigger. We strongly advise you to follow the session from the moderator dashboard only. Please do not access the session as an attendee at the same time, as this can cause echo issues with your audio. In the bottom left, we find all the pre-recordings that have been created by the speakers for this session. Prior to the conference, you could watch these videos on your moderator dashboard by clicking the broadcast button, like this, and then hit play. The pre-recording will play on the two frames in the middle. So again, the slides of the speaker will appear here, and the camera of the presenting speaker will appear here. You can stop the recording again by clicking here on this button. And then afterwards, you could either deselect the recording and go to the next one. In the middle, you find all the interactivity for the session. We have two types of chat. On the Attendees tab, messages are visible to speakers, chairs, and so this is public. On the Speakers tab, messages are only visible to speakers and chairs, or the moderators. So this is like a green room. This means that throughout the session, when we are broadcasting, you can ask your questions to the speakers if needed here without the attendees seeing it. Please note that messages cannot be deleted though in both tabs. On the Q&A, the submitted questions can be moderated. You, speakers, and attendees can submit questions during this session. You can do that here at the bottom. All the questions that are submitted appear first under Invisible and need to be approved by you first. You can see that now a new question came in, so it comes first under Invisible. You can approve or make a question visible by clicking on the eye icon. You will see this icon when you go over a question, like I do here. Once you click on the eye icon, the question will move from invisible to visible. Now, speakers and attendees can see the question as well. With the heart icon, questions can be upvoted by speakers and attendees. So once a speaker upvotes the question, you will see the count here go up. In the live Q&A at the end of the session or during your session, you can go through these questions and perhaps have the questions with the most likes be discussed first. Please note that you can filter the questions based on newest first or most popular first. Also, you could edit or delete a question by clicking on the three dots. You can make a question invisible again once it's answered by clicking again on the eye icon. The question will disappear for speakers and attendees, so they have a good overview of the pending questions as well. Now, lastly, we have the Attendees tab. This shows a list of the session's attendees. On the bottom right of the Moderator Dashboard, there is a Share Screen button. This button can be used if you would like to present as a chair during the session. If you need to share your screen for a PowerPoint, we advise to share your entire screen and then launch PowerPoint in presentation mode. Now I have explained what we see on the Moderator Dashboard, I'm going to explain what is going to happen during the live session. We have 3 types of sessions during the conference. Sessions with a live introduction by the chair, followed by pre-recorded presentations and a live Q&A. Sessions that are fully live. Sessions with live discussions and no presentations. The following instructions apply to all these sessions. During the conference, we ask you to enter your Moderator Dashboard 30 minutes prior to the start of the session. A technical moderator will be present to brief you and the speakers about the session, to make sure you are set up correctly, and to answer any questions you may have. The technical moderators have access to the same Moderator Dashboard as you, and will be responsible for the broadcast during the session. This means that this person will make sure that the broadcasting starts, the right persons are selected, the pre-recordings are being played, and the panel is enabled for the live Q&A. You only need to moderate the Q&A and do not need to do any other clicking. Upon entering your dashboard 30 minutes prior to the session, please enable your microphone and camera at the bottom. Make sure to position the camera at eye level, avoid backlight, and make sure there is no background noise. You can select other sources if needed by clicking on this arrow. You can select another source for your video and your audio. In the 30 minutes prior to the session, the attendees won't hear and see you. 15 minutes prior to the session starts, the technical moderator will open the room in the bottom left corner. This allows attendees to enter the virtual room, but they won't hear and see you yet. When the technical moderator announces that the session broadcast is about to start, he or she will select you as the presenting speaker. So let's say I'm the chair of this session. I will be selected as the presenting speaker. I will see myself now appear in the middle frame. If you are not presenting through screen share, the session's placeholder slide is shown on the left. Now, the moderator will count down and then start broadcasting. Once broadcasting starts, you will see a live tag on the 2 main frames, and you can start the introduction. So the moderator, the technical moderator, will go from 3, 2, 1. They will click on this button, and then you will see that the live tag appears here on the 2 frames. You can now start with your introduction. After your introduction, the technical moderator will play all the pre-recordings. You, as a chair, can now mute yourself, but leave your camera enabled. So you can click this button and leave your camera on. You won't be visible to the audience, only to the other moderators in this list. Now, while the pre-recordings are playing, you can moderate the incoming questions in the Q&A. So you can go to invisible, make questions visible, or you can hide questions. Please do not click anywhere else, because you could accidentally stop the pre-recording, although we have implemented some warnings. So you can see if I click here, it asks me if I really want to stop the video. So in that case, you could click cancel, but please try to avoid clicking outside of this box. After all the pre-recordings are finished, the technical moderator will enable the panel mode. So I will now just stop this pre-recording. So the technical moderator will make sure you are selected again, and from there go to panel mode. Now all the speakers and chairs will appear here on the grid. And you can start with the live Q&A. So you can open again the invisible and visible. You can keep moderating the incoming questions and go through the questions that you've made visible and that maybe have been upvoted. In case it's a fully live session, the technical moderator won't play pre-recordings, but instead select an individual speaker to present live. So after your introduction as a chair, instead of playing a pre-recording, the technical moderator will select the presenting speaker. So then the speaker and the slides that the speaker has uploaded or the share screen that the speaker has enabled will be shown to the audience. In case it's a panel discussion session, we will stay in panel mode throughout the entire session. And if someone wishes not to participate at some point in the Q&A, he or she can simply disable the microphone and camera at the bottom. So I will do that now, and will disappear from the grid. When the live Q&A finished, the technical moderator will stop broadcasting. So the technical moderator will click a button in the lower left, and when broadcasting stopped, you will see that the live text disappeared from the main frames. From this point, the audience won't hear and see you anymore, and you can now talk a bit more with your speakers or simply leave the dashboard. This concludes the instructions on the Moderator Dashboard. Thank you for listening, and we are now ready to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Anouk. We have received already a few questions. Do any of our panelists want to say anything first, clarify anything? Otherwise, I'll go ahead then. So the first question, it says, I am only attending the conference. I am chairing the presentation. I am chairing, not the conference. Will I receive separate link information, etc.?
So most of the invitations to all chairs and moderators should already have been sent with access to your particular session you're chairing. But if you're missing anything, any information, don't hesitate to write to us. We'll be happy to help. I think the email was sent on 27th of September for most of the moderators and chairs. So maybe check your spam or have a look at 27th of September to see if you received the email.
Just expanding on that, the virtual room and moderation is separate to the main conference. So you'll have an invitation to do your chair duties. That does by default give you access to the conference on a Community Connect level, which is our public offering at the conference. You do automatically get that, but you won't get access to the rest of the conference without a registration.
Thank you. The next question is for Agnes. The question is, as chair, do we have the chance to do a live introductive session of the symposium or satellite session?
Yes, Alain, thank you for your question. You are indeed able and invited, encouraged to do a live introduction. That is planned in the program to have a 5-minute live time for the chairs to introduce the session and briefly the speakers. So each session should have had time allocated for that introduction, that live introduction.
Thank you, Audrey. Another question, this one is for you, Audrey. Many of us are logging in from places where the internet may not be stable and may need to shift between providers during the presentation, I suppose.
Thank you, Blessina. Yes, indeed, as a virtual event, unfortunately, there will be technical issues for some of us, some of you. So about the chairing role, fortunately, we planned for most of the session to have 2 chairs. So if you're chairing a session and you have connection issues, your co-chair could take over if there's a few seconds where you're not able to. And of course, there will be a technical moderator in the room who will be assisting with any technical problems. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
during the playback of presentations. That isn't dependent on anyone's internet connection. That's handled in the cloud by Conference Compass. So even if all moderators and chairs were, chairs and speakers, sorry, were disconnected, the playback would still continue.
That's why we have pre-recorded presentations. So another question, will there be a technical support person present for each session, or do the chairs need to press play and decide on the speaker and panel mode?
Yeah, I can answer that. So there will be a technical person for each session. As a chair, you do not need to press play or decide on speaker or panel. This will all be taken care of by the moderator, the technical moderator. This person will also go through this session flow with you prior to the session in those 30 minutes. So the only thing you will have to do is moderate the Q&A. So decide if questions should be visible and maybe edit or delete a question if needed.
Thank you. Here, the speaker's pre-recorded presentation has to be played by chairs, or will those run automatically? I think we have just answered that question. How long does the introduction of the session chair take, and who does it?
So usually the chair's introduction is about 5 minutes right before the start of the broadcast of all the pre-recorded presentations for most of the sessions. So you have 5 minutes. Maybe it's good sometimes to discuss with the co-chair to make sure to know who does what, to briefly introduce the session and briefly introduce the speakers. So it would be good to maybe get in touch with your co-chair to plan for that. So yeah, so the live introduction is about 5 minutes.
And for TB Science plenary, well, special sessions, the duration of the introduction has been communicated. It's usually shorter than 5 minutes. So please refer to the communication, the session details.
Thank you. And then a question about the Q&A. Do you have any guidelines for when one should decide not to make a question visible?
I would say most questions can be made visible. I would not make a question visible if you have a duplicated question, for example, in the Q&A. So if multiple people ask the same question, you would only have to make the question visible once, and then the other attendees can like the question, so you know this is a question from multiple attendees. If it's not a question related to the content of the session, let's say, but more technical thing, you could also leave it invisible, and then if needed, the technical moderator will handle it.
Okay, then there is a comment. Someone, Rebecca Nantanda, said that the last time she chaired a session, she was not able to see the questions from the audience, and the co-chair had to do all the work.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. So this year is slightly different. Last year, you were connected as a chair via Zoom, but also via the platform. So this year, everything is all in one platform. So there shouldn't be any issue of that kind. If you connect via the Moderator Dashboard, you shouldn't have issues in seeing the questions and seeing the panel and the session at the same time. But if you do, of course, the technical support person will be there and will help you at the start of the session to sort that out for you.
A question from Kathleen England. What sessions will be live versus use recorded?
So it depends on which type of session you're in, but most sessions, so symposia, oral abstract sessions, most of the special sessions, those will have a live introduction. Then all the pre-recorded presentations will be played in a row by the technical person in the room, and then there will be live Q&A. So that's the format of most of our sessions. But of course, if you have a specific question about your session, don't hesitate to write to us. We'll be happy to answer.
Okay. A question from Ashish Pandey. Technical moderators will contact the chair prior to the conference?
So this won't be the case. The technical moderator will be in the room. So also on the moderator dashboard 30 minutes prior to the session. So that's why we invite you also to join 30 minutes before. So we have enough time to make sure everyone is set up correctly.
A question from Lindsay McKenna. So if we're a speaker, a chair, and attending the conference, we have to log in using different links to access the relevant interface.
So as a speaker or as a chair, you access through the same link. So it's the Union backend. You can create an account here. As an attendee, there's indeed another link. You will be invited to it. But if you're using the same email address as a speaker or chair and you're registered for the conference with that email address, it's the same account. So you don't have different logins. There's one login, but two links. One for the backend as a speaker or moderator, and one link for the platform as to join as an attendee.
Okay. So one question, how can they contact the technical assistant if they need help during the session?
Yes, so in the 30 minutes prior to the session, we will try to make sure everyone is set up correctly. If something happens during the session and you have a question for the technical moderator, you could write it in the speaker chat. So the messages you're sending here are only visible to the other speakers and the moderators. They're not visible to the attendees. If anything happens during the session and technical assistance is needed, and it can only be done by help of the moderator would unmute himself or herself and then give you instructions. So for you to reach out will be via the chat, but if needed, the technical moderator could always unmute him or herself and then give you the right instructions.
Thank you. Is there any way we can arrange with the technical moderator to start the pre-recordings in case we want to go to questions in between recordings rather than all at the end?
I think the first question would be if this will be an option during the conference.
Yes, so we would prefer to have all the Q&A at the end. That would be the preferred format and encouraged, because we want to avoid, of course, having too many questions, and then there wouldn't be enough time to play the last presentations, for example. So we would like to avoid that, but write to us if you think it's really necessary for the understanding of the session, or if it's really important to you. We can see how we can arrange that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Can team members who are in supporting roles, such as not speakers or chairs, have access to the platform to ensure all speakers are well set up?
So that also, that would be something maybe to request in advance. Let us know if you think that's really necessary to have someone else join the session. But just so you know, there will be a support person that will ensure that everyone is there and that sound is working properly, video. There shouldn't be any problems. But if you really would like to have someone as well, don't hesitate to write to us. You can request that.
Okay, and a question about the time management. What if the pre-recorded presentations are longer than the given time? Does the chair have to intervene?
So those are being checked as we speak. So the speakers have already recorded most of their presentations, and our team and the team from Conference Campus, we're all checking the durations and making sure that there won't be any major overtime from the speakers. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, question in the Q&A session. If I choose a question, how long will it show on the screen? Last year, it disappeared so quick that I didn't have time to read it.
So the question will not disappear. It will always be on your moderator dashboard unless you delete it yourself. So when a question comes in from the audience, it will be on the invisible tab. and you can move it to visible. So it's visible to the speakers and the attendees. If you decide to make the question invisible, it's still visible to you, but it won't be visible anymore for the speakers and attendees. So it will never disappear from your dashboard completely unless you take the action to delete it yourself.
Okay. And will the chairs be able to get the number of people registered prior to the event?
That's Anouk, is that something we can provide potentially?
I'm not sure if I
Oh,
completely understand the question.
Yeah.
I think what the question is can we provide how many people are due to join a particular session? But that's not something that we'll be able to advise.
Right.
Okay. Someone is asking, as a moderator, I recorded all the bios of my speakers. How will this be played at the time of the broadcast?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So if you have recorded this through the platform, or if you uploaded your external video on the platform on the speaker dashboard, it will be played by the moderators during the session, as I've shown you in the video. So it will be exactly the same.
Thank you. Rovina asks, I'm co-chairing the oral session from pre-recorded video to another one. Will it be in a row without introduction for each presenter by the chair?
Yes, so after the session introduction from the chair, we will play each pre-recording in a row. So there won't be an introduction between pre-recordings.
Okay, another question. Charlotte Batts is moderating a live panel discussion, and as part of the live Q&A session, can you clarify if you can share PowerPoint slides during the live sessions? Do you just have to select share screen, or is there anything else you need to do?
So to show your PowerPoint slides, you have to share your screen. We advise you to share your entire screen and then launch PowerPoint in presentation mode. So we capture the entire PowerPoint and nothing else that is open on your computer. What is always good if there is a live panel discussion and you would like to present something, just say it out loud that you're going to share your screen, something like this, or discuss it with the technical moderator prior to the session, because then the moderator will make sure that your slides are visible during the panel discussion.
Okay, another question about the dashboard. Will the TV Science and main conference all be on the same dashboard, one login for every session moderated?
Yes, everything will be on the same dashboard, all in the same place. So TV Science, special sessions, all will be in the same place as other sessions.
Okay, this question from Vladislav. When will pre-recorded presentations be available and visible in the dashboard?
I'm not sure to which information we're referring here exactly, maybe the order of presentations and the speakers. On your moderator dashboard, you will only see who is invited to the session. So if you would like to know the presentation names, speaker details, you would have to go to the conference platform, where you can also see the program.
I think this might relate to when can chairs pre-watch submitted presentations. So as soon as a presenter has recorded their presentation, it will be available in the moderator dashboard, the chair dashboard for you to view. So if you don't see a recording from a particular speaker, it means they haven't recorded their presentation yet.
If the chairs want to present a single slide at the beginning, can they send that slide to the union or technical moderator rather than trying to present from their side?
If you do have one slide, sorry, you can exceptionally send it over to us. Usually the live introduction is expected to be brief and short just before the recordings are played. But if you do have and require to show a slide, you can contact us at the same address that was posted in the chat. Thank you.
From Zahedul, will there be possibilities for audience to ask questions in via audio or only through the Q&A chat?
It will only be possible through the Q&A and the chat.
And should the chairs read the questions out loud for the speakers, or do the speakers see them as well?
The speakers see the questions as well, but it's a very good question. I would actually recommend to also read out the question, mainly because if we are going to make the session available on demand afterwards, everyone, also those people who watch later, will know which question is being answered. So for the clarity of the Q&A, I would read out the question like we're doing right now, actually, and then have the speaker answered.
Okay. And a question about the biographies. When shall we get the speaker biographies, or will this be found in the system?
Those can be found on the program, on the online program. When searching for the session, then if you click on the speaker, you should see the speaker's bio. But if you can't find it, don't hesitate to write to us. We can help.
Okay, now a comment from Martina Kasengi. Recording of the presentations has proven to be very complicated if internet speed is limited. Will the same happen to the live event? Is there a minimum internet speed that is required in order to be able to perform the chair tasks?
I do not have specifics on how the internet speed overall during the live session. It should be okay. If we encounter any internet issues during the 30 minutes prior to the session, the technical moderator will advise you. Last solution that often works is that we might ask you to disable your camera so we can ensure your audio is working well for the Q&A. But if you already noticed that during the pre-recording you had some issues with the pre-recording, try to see if you can stabilize your internet connection for during the event.
And a question from Kathleen England. Will the union inform the speakers to arrive early for preparing for the session?
Yeah, so today we advised you, chairs, to join 30 minutes prior to the session. We have asked the speakers to do the same. So everyone who will be in the session will join 30 minutes prior.
If your co-chair is also a speaker, how can they effectively shuffle between the both roles?
Sorry, I don't see this question.
It's under the answered tab.
It's under the answer tab.
Yeah.
Okay.
From Deborah Oguche.
Yeah, the question was if a co-chair is also a speaker in the same session, how do they effectively perform both roles?
Yeah, so probably your presentation was pre-recorded. So we have made sure this pre-recording is still available on the moderator dashboard. So as a moderator, you could actually watch your own pre-recording now. During the session, you will perform the moderator role. So the technical moderator will make sure that when your presentation needs to be broadcasted, your presentation is selected. And then for the introduction or the live Q&A part, you will be selected as a live speaker. So this won't be any problem.
Okay, I think I have some questions about introducing speakers. So again, someone asked, do you want chairpersons to introduce the speakers? Another question, should the chair introduce all the speakers at the beginning or one after another?
So usually we ask that in the introduction, you can briefly introduce the speakers, but also speakers have usually introduced themselves at the start of their recorded presentation. So if you do want to mention the speakers, maybe do it briefly, that's fine.
And how long will the Q&A take? And should we strictly stick to the time?
It depends on the session, again, on if it's a symposium or an oral abstract or a special session, but usually overall it's around 20 minutes. But that detail is the timing is mentioned in the program. If you have a doubt about your session, don't hesitate to check the online program or the links that were provided to you when we either invited you or when we communicated with you.
I think it's important to add, we do ask that sessions stay to the time that is, in the program. If you do go over a few minutes, it's not the end of the world. You can continue the session for a little bit longer, but we do try to ask you to just to keep on time and not overrun too far.
Thank you. There is a few questions about accessing the dashboard before the event, so they can practice or they can check their microphone and they can just, have a feel for it.
Yes, so definitely once you have received your moderator invitation, feel free to join the dashboard, explore it a little bit, check your microphone and camera if everything works well. That's totally fine. And as mentioned in the video, you could even play the pre-recordings that were made by the speakers. Just one note, as I mentioned in the video, if the speaker joined their dashboard at the same time, potentially you could see that person and you could talk to each other. So don't be surprised if you suddenly hear some sound. It could be that another speaker or moderator is online as well. Your presentation will go less.
Question about the questions. So is there an option that the questions are only visible to chairs and speakers?
No, this is not an option. So when they're invisible, there's just for moderators, and when they're visible, it's speakers and attendees.
And is it possible to unmute an attendee so they can clarify their question or ask follow-up questions?
Yeah, so the attendees won't have any audio or video rights in the session. So this won't be possible.
And the chair or the technical moderator, will the technical moderator alert the chairs on the time so that the team can prepare to wrap up?
So we asked the chair also to keep an eye on the time. As Audrey mentioned, the pre-recordings are checked, so they won't be too long. But in a Q&A at the end of the session, of course, it's good to keep an eye on the time to make sure we don't run over. If needed, the technical moderator could send a message on the speaker chat to inform you that the session is soon to end.
And then a question about participants. Before, the question was, will we know in advance how many participants we'll have? We don't know that, but can the chair see how many participants are in the room during the live session? I mean, during the session?
Yes, so on the third interactivity tab, so we have the chat, the Q&A, and then the last one was attendees. Here you can see a count of how many attendees are in the session. This count is updated around every minute or so. So once the room opens for 50 minutes prior to the session, you already see this count go up, and maybe throughout the session, you can see the number changing as well.
About the speakers, do the speakers understand that their pre-recording will be used and that they will not be presenting live?
Sorry.
Yes.
For you? Okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
This has been specified in the various communications, yes, to the speakers. But if there are any doubts, maybe we can remind them in our future communications to be sure that that they know they won't need to present live unless advised otherwise, because we have a couple fully live sessions.
A question from Jackie. When will we have confirmation of which speakers will be available for live Q&A?
Sorry, can you repeat, Laura, please? I'm sorry.
So when will the chairs know which speakers will be available for a live Q&A?
So when when checking the your moderator dashboard, you can see who has uploaded their pre-recordings, who has pre-recorded their presentations. All speakers have been advised to attend the live Q&A. So in principle, all speakers should attend. But on the day of the session, you will be able to see only once you connect to the session if the speaker joined or not. Yeah.
And then we have a question about the Q&A. So Rain wants to know if one of the speakers could be given moderator or chair access to help.
I think this is for you, Audrey. Upon request, I would say.
Yes, that would be upon request. So okay, yes, Ryan Huben. So you would like to potentially help, though you're a speaker, you would like to help with moderation. Yes, let us know by email, because that would be a special. We would need to change your access. We can exceptionally allow that if necessary.
A question from Mercedes Becerra. Can you please resend by email the instructions for how to log into the dashboard for chairs?
Sure. Yeah, we take note of your request and we will resend. Thank you.
And another question about the Meet the Expert session. Typically, there is a dialogue between the chair and the expert that is live. Will this still be the case?
Yes, that is still the case. On the contrary to last year, the short presentation is recorded by the expert. But the introduction by the chair and the discussion afterwards is live this year.
And then Lindsay has a question about the presentations. She worries that if they are over their allocated time, if they are going to be cut off or allowed to play the entire duration.
I can answer this. So the presentations, once recorded, they are going through checks. So we know exactly what are the durations, and depending on the session and the time that that is allocated, we can advise whether 11-minute presentation, for example, is still okay, or if it needs to be re-recorded. And then the presenter is contacted, and that the recording again, they are recording again. So yeah.
Okay, a question by Wim van de Veld. In the advanced session settings, there is an option to export the chat. Is this function available for moderators?
Yes, indeed. There is next to the Attendee tab, let's say there's a wheel for session settings. I've not explained this in the video since there's nothing there that you would need to take any action for. But yeah, this button is available, so you could export the chat. But you don't need to go to session settings to do anything else. That's why it was skipped in the video.
Okay, let me see. Only a couple more questions. So on the expert session, the email indicates there will be 40 minutes Q&A. Are there 40 minutes for one speaker or for all the speakers?
Yes, so that's specific to the, yes, a meet the expert session, since it's intended to be a more of an interactive session. Yes, there is a longer time for Q&A, and this would be for Q&A time allowed for Q&A from the full audience to the speaker and the chair.
There is a question from Evelyn Kibuchis. She says that she's a presenter in the expert session and she wants to know how to pre-record the presentation. But I think we did a webinar on this,
yes,
right? So
indeed, yes, we take note, Evelyn, and we will send you the recording of the previous webinar. It's available on the website, but we'll send you a link.
And a very interesting question. What most common serious mistake can be made during the session from your experience? And I guess how to avoid it?
I'm not sure. Maybe forget to enable your microphone, something like this. I think as a chair, most important is just to, when the Q&A starts, to leave your microphone and camera on, so the audience can hear you and to go through the Q&A. This is the most important thing.
A question from Kathleen England. Will the technical assistant person provide the audience an understanding of how the session will run and will warn them that they will only be able to type in questions, the format, etc., or will the chairs have to do that?
Yes. So what we usually do is prior to the start of the session is to submit a question in the Q&A ourselves, where we ask the audience to submit a question in a specific format, which is to put the speaker name, so for who the question is, followed by the question itself. This will make it for you easier to moderate the questions in the live Q&A. But I think it's always good in the session introduction as a chair to point out the Q&A once again. So everyone knows that the question should go here. That cannot do any harm.
Okay, and there were a couple of questions from Annette Trachman. One, she asked clarification about if the speakers will be able to answer a few questions in writing, or
no, so questions cannot be answered in writing, at least not on the Q&A tab. So what will happen is in the live Q&A, the chair will read out the question and then have it answered by the speaker in person, so live. Written answers would only be possible on the chat, but that might confuse the flow of the Q&A a little bit. So I advise to do all questions live.
And I think there's some questions about the introductions, if the chairs have to be, because the chairs have already pre-recorded the introductions, do they have to do them again? Some confusion around that.
For most of the session, the introduction is intended to be live, except of course if the session is fully pre-recorded, which it happens in some cases. So unless you are aware of that the format of the session is fully pre-recorded, which are a few exceptions, most of the introductions are made live. But if you have a doubt, don't hesitate to write about your specific session.
Another question, if there are too many questions and some are simple, we can do it through the chat. This is a comment, not a question.
So if we have two questions, sorry, I didn't get the...
If there are too many questions and some are simple, we can answer them through the chat, I guess.
This could be an option indeed. If you have too many questions and they cannot all be answered live in the time you have for the Q&A, some questions could be answered in the chat.
And so there was someone who actually is like a follow-up to this. They were saying because there is a chair and a co-chair, maybe one chair could be in charge of the oral questions and the other one of the written questions.
That's a good one, yeah. And I see also a question about the Q&A organization and how the co-chair can handle it. So if there is a chair and a co-chair in the session, it's good to align who will be taking care of moderating to avoid that both of you are making the same question visible or clicking on the same things at the same time. Maybe one person can take care of making invisible and visible.
Okay, where there are two co-chairs, are we able to assign questions to be asked to the respective chairs?
No, you're not able to assign questions. No, it's just making it visible and invisible. We are asking the audience to add in the question for who it is. Of course, what you could do, just one note, is when a question comes in, as shown in the video, you are able to edit the question. So what you could do is edit the question and then add the name of the chair in the beginning and only then make it visible. So then you're usually we're using the edit button to maybe remove a typo before making it visible, but you could also clarify for who the question is by adding the chair name.
Good. And then someone is asking if Anouk will repeat the Q&A organization and how the co-chair will handle this part. But we are recording this webinar, so you can replay it as many times as you want, and we'll be sending the link. Will be on the conference website. I don't think we have any more questions. There's another one that just came through about a live introduction, if it can only be made at the end of all the recorded presentations, because this seems to be, so I read the full question. Do I understand correctly that live introduction can be made only at the end of all the recorded presentation, as there seems to be no time allocated for the speakers at the start of the session?
So as a moderator, you can make the live introduction at the beginning of the session, and then the recordings will be played one after another, and then Q&A will follow. Live Q&A will follow that.
Okay, I think that's it. No more questions. I don't know, anything that the panelists want to share? Any final comments? Clarification?
All good. Thank you, Lara.
So we are almost at the top of the hour. We will be sharing the link to this recording so you can play it and replay it. And well, I thank all the panelists here for answering all the questions. Matilde has just pasted on the chat the email address if you have any questions about the conference. And well, thank you for all the chairs that have joined today. Thank you, Anouk, for the video, and everybody else.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great conference.
Thank you.